DentistsDoctors of Reddit. What healthy food is actual not that good for us? Story 1. My dietitian always says that most flavored yogurts have so much sugar that they really should be considered a dessert, but she also likes to say that unhealthy foods are fine in small amounts and even healthy foods are unhealthy in large amounts. It's about moderation, like 1 banana is good for you, 1,000 bananas is not. Story 2. The red wine is good for you thing was debunked a while back when they figured out it didn't really control for income-wealth disparity, and really it turns out people who regularly drank red wine were healthier because they had the resources to be able to do so. We are coming to realize now that any level of alcohol consumption at all, no matter the type, increases your risk for health conditions including cancer. Story 3. Dentist here. Not about food but sleep generally. Sleep is good for you, and for the most part getting more sleep corresponds to better health overall. Sleep is good for your body, but it's actually somewhat devastating to your teeth. While you are awake, your saliva flow naturally limits the bacteria in your mouth through constant flushing. When you fall asleep, saliva flow decreases to near zero and whatever is in your mouth breeds and multiplies and doubles many times over by the time you wake up. That's why morning breath is a thing. It's also why dentists recommend brushing twice a day, once right before bed and once right after breakfast. And if it weren't for the fact that the first thing you do after waking up is eat, would say brush as soon as you wake up, but brushing then immediately eating is no good, so we countenance a brief delay. But basically, you want to sandwich your sleep with oral hygiene because as far as dental health goes, sleep is bad for you. Story 4. Searched the comments and couldn't find this. Apologies if it's already been posted. Apple cider vinegar. I know not all would agree it has health benefits, but as a dentist I absolutely hate the stuff. The number of patients I've seen with sudden onset attrition quite frankly scares me. It's like one moment they have healthy, non-worn-out teeth, the next minute a 30-year-old has the teeth of a 50-year-old. Stay away from apple cider vinegar, kids. Edit. This got a lot of traction, so we'll add a bit more useful information. A lot of people who drink apple cider vinegar are actually aware it's bad for their teeth. So after drinking it they brush their teeth immediately. It's doubly bad when you do this because your teeth are weakened by the vinegar, and then brushing immediately essentially removes the layer of weakened enamel. This is the same with all acidic substances, e.g. red wine. Rinsing with water afterwards does help. But much better off not drinking the vinegar in the first place. Hope this helps. Story 5. So, what the actual is left? Threads like these are as depressing as they are informative. I'm just gonna have to enjoy my life before I die of a water overdose. Story 6. Dietitian here that specifically works with eating disorders. What I help my clients with is zooming out and seeing that there is no one healthy or unhealthy thing necessarily. It's more in the context of how it fits into your diet and for your personal nutrition needs, which is extremely individualized. Eating mainly whole foods, hydrating, protein and fiber are paying the bills to your body, so having some added sugar, saturated fat or a high-calorie food when you want to typically won't affect your health negatively and isn't bad. Remove the guilt and focus on balance. My hot tip though is regarding foods labeled as organic, vegan, non-GMO etc. It can be as highly processed or sugary, and all sugar is sugar independent of whether it's organic coconut sugar or regular sugar versus molasses. People tend to stress the small stuff and hyperanalyze ingredients and do much better zooming out and seeing diet as a whole. Story 7. I'm a family medicine physician in training. Young guys specifically, please chill out with smoking weed daily. For whatever reason it's usually young men instead of women, but it seems to gut their motivation, and I see so many guys in their mid-40s that did it all day, every day now with nothing to show for their life and not a sign of a career. Also this isn't hard and fast, but often they've got bad anxiety and not great sleep quality. While you could argue it's not a medical statement about food, as family medicine we try to focus on the entire person, and these guys are setting themselves up for a train wreck. I really like that recent Cursecast video about weed. It cites good sources and gives reasonable arguments. Story 8. Dental-wise. I caution my patients about eating too many nuts. The force that our food exerts on us is either exerted to our teeth or to the bone, more accurately to the periodontal ligament. Hard foods, like almonds, ice cubes, stray popcorn kernels, can wear down and even fracture teeth. Force exerted on teeth or create mobility force exerted on ligament and or jawbone. When the tooth becomes mobile, plaque and bacteria can get into the space where the ligament is housed, and bone loss and recession will happen as a result. It's really hard to keep these areas clean once plaque gets into these spaces, so prevention is key. So for my avid nut eaters, I recommend getting sliced or crushed varieties so that they can still obtain the nutritional benefits without exposing their teeth to excessive biting forces. Story 9. My dentist is always reminding me to be aware of drinking acidic beverages since they can degrade the enamel on your teeth. Aside from the obvious like coffee and soda, this includes unsweetened sparkling water, just about anything carbonated, really. Not that it's unhealthy, but you should always thoroughly rinse your mouth out with water after drinking one. Story 10. Anything with citric acid in it, like those hot lemon juice cleanses. The citric acid chelates the calcium from your saliva and stops your enamel from absorbing it. I remember a patient moved to a property with a lemon orchard and she became obsessed and put lemon juice on absolutely everything. When she came in for a checkup 2 years later, she had worn such deep abrasions into the surfaces of her teeth that it looked like the base of her teeth were missing on radiographs. There was so little mineral left that they became partially radiolucent. Only ever seen it to that extent twice over the past 12 years though. Story 11. Grapefruit. It's a fruit so good, right? Not if you're on psych meds or anti-rejection meds or pretty much any kind of meds, because it affects the rate of med absorption and can cause unintentional overdose or reduce efficacy. Story 12. Tea. Tea, especially green tea, is a superfood, but the tea bags are riddled with microplastics. Buy reusable tea bags made from cloth, brew your tea. On the other end of the spectrum, xylitol is actually great for your teeth. It's a sugar substitute that kills bacteria in the mouth. Story 13. My doctor every year keeps advising me to follow a Mediterranean diet, and a year or two ago there was a best-of linked comment that explained it much better than anyone. After reading it, I was like, I'm landlocked and 500 miles from nearest coast. To follow this diet, it'll basically be doubling my grocery bills and reducing my free time in half. Story 14. I'm not a dentist, but I do really like having teeth, so I avoid popcorn. It gets stuck between your teeth and slides down under your gums so easily. Not worth the salty joy. Story 15. Nutritionists and dietitians have way more experience here than general medical practitioners. It's possible to get an MD while learning only the very basics about evidence-based nutrition. If your doctor tells you something that sounds strange, get a second opinion. Story 16. Diabetic here. My blood sugar is well controlled, so I can afford to use my body as a testing machine for different foods and snacks from time to time. Read the below from sugar content carbs perspective, as this is what impacts my blood sugar. I will pick on few items below that me off a bit. Oat milk contains a lot of sugar. If flavored even worse, opt for cow milk if you have no intolerance and okay with the taste. Oat healthy yes, but contains a lot of sugar from starch. Good snack yes, but not really good if the plan is to lose weight. Not all carbs content will be absorbed though given the high fiber intake. Snack bar cereals, granular cornflakes with healthy branding bullshit. Full of sugar. Go for raw nuts with some dry fruits is much better for you. Yogurt flavored yogurt is high in sugar. Go for plain and add berries. Berries are really good. Low in sugar. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, pineapple. Happy to answer any questions about other foods as well. Story 17. Interesting that most comments are about food having too many calories but not necessarily about being nutritious. Low calorie doesn't equal more nutritious and doesn't equal better for you. Nutrition is a personal thing, so what's good for someone doesn't necessarily mean it's good for everyone. Story 18. As a dentist, I remind people that the diet industry will come up with superfoods that are supposed really good for you, but in reality are marketing terms for a new fad over foods that you probably wouldn't enjoy eating, so they fill them with sugar. Story 19. I've learned to just eat whatever I want. It seems every few years the once healthy foods are found to be bad for you. The food pyramid I learned growing up has evolved so many times that it's not even the same triangle anymore. It's probably not even triangular anymore. Anything that's healthy for you now will be found to be bad for you 5-10 years from now. Processed and or smoked charred meats, especially packaged. Those turkey and ham slices are chock full of sodium, preservatives, BHD, BHA, etc. Nitrosamines in smoked cured meats. Gastritis, peptic ulcers, gastric cancer, which is on the rise in young adults. If you like blackened foods or like char on the grill, just know there's carcinogens involved. Best is to slow cook, bake, pressure cook, sous vide. Enjoy every week or two, just not every day. Regretfully, a barbecue enthusiast. Story 20. NAD, but thought agave syrup low glycemic index meant it was a good substitute for sugar in my second to fourth cup of coffee throughout the day. Nope, it strains the liver and can make diabetes harder to have control. Ginger is great for soothing my stomach and inflammation. Everything in moderation, but 2 teaspoons a day isn't much. Especially if having sushi and drinking cups of ginger tea the same day. Story 21. Not to split hairs, but this question should really be addressed at dietitians. Doctors receive surprisingly little education about nutrition science. Story 22. Most food drinks geared towards fitness recovery. If you're not really exercising, it's just excess sugar to replenish your energy in 1 hour-long endurance activities like a marathon. Unsolicited maybe, but just check the macronutrients of what you're consuming in a day. These kind of questions almost always have a depends answer. Avoid too little protein, avoid too much sugar and fat, avoid excess calories. I'm 35, and I'm realizing how much better I feel now than in my teens and 20s during the day, because I don't subsist on Cheez-Its and Gatorade. I'm 180-ish lbs, aim for 3 meals a day. I avoid more than 25 grams of fat per meal, avoid more than 15 grams of sugar per meal. Aim for 40 grams of protein per meal, and aim for 10 grams of fiber per meal. These are averages. I still eat bread, cereal, cheese daily. Just try using MyFitnessPal, Lose It, or whatever calorie macro tracking thing you want for a day. See what nutrients you're eating. I've been eating the same breakfast for a year. Cereal with less than 6 grams sugar, and at least 5 grams of fiber. Add blueberries, hemp seeds, oat milk, then a scoop of whey protein in water. Oat milk, 700-ish calories, about 13 of my day. 40 protein, 15 fat, 60 carb. Hemp seeds have lots of micronutrients. Story 23. Given that fairy floss cotton candy was invented by a dentist and then subsequently stolen by another dentist, I would probably urge caution in asking them for dietary advice. Story 24. Worked as a dental assistant. Gatorade has a ton of sugar in it and causes tons of cavities. Water it down or brush your teeth after each one to help your body. Story 25. While I appreciate a lot of the info here, I feel like people have twisted this logic to justify their soda habit because it has less sugar than apple juice, or their daily candy bar habit because granola bars are basically just candy. How about you don't eat or drink either one very often? Story 26. The guy who convinced parents that gummy bears weren't candy if you used a differently shaped candy mold to make them and called them fruit snacks was a marketing evil genius. Story 27. IDs say there are plenty of commercial brands available that don't have a ton of added sugar, some even use honey. Calorie dense isn't necessarily a bad thing either. Oats, nut butters, and seeds are healthy calories. I guess if you're trying to lose weight, calorie dense should be avoided. However, it's not unhealthy. Story 28. Water is essential. Unless you drink too much and hold your bladder, you can intentionally alter the cellular tonicity in your blood and die. Hold your wee to win a wee. Story 29. I'm a physician. Organic food is the answer to your question. I'm at work so I don't have time to delve into it, but it's a total and complete scam. I can explain later if someone is interested in knowing why, and GMOs are a good thing. Story 30. People really have no clue how to read nutrition labels, and these comments are very telling. How could you not realize most commercially sold fruit juices and just as bad as soda? Just read the labels, people. Story 31. Not a doctor. I looked up the nutritional facts on different kinds of muffins, sugar and fat sources, lots of not very good carbs. The difference between a muffin and a cupcake isn't very much. Have a cupcake. Story 32. Grapefruit juice inhibits CYP3A4, a common liver enzyme that breaks down many other medications. This could mean some medications you're taking can build up to toxic levels in your body. Genetic variation can lessen or worsen the effect. Story 33. Not a doctor or a dentist, but when feeding the cat, I came to the conclusion that wet food good for kidneys, but not so good for teeth. Dry food bad for kidneys, good for teeth, as cats often do not drink enough and dry food is often salty to make it last longer. Wet food contains water, but they hardly chew on it. I can imagine that, in humans, that's why a balanced meal is a thing. Equal the damage so you'll last longer overall. Story 34. Juice most is not good for you. The sugar content is that of a soda. Juice with pulp fiber is better and specialty juice with veggies even better, but mostly all store-bought juice is horrible. Story 35. Honey. From a chemical standpoint, honey is roughly 50 fructose and 50 glucose. People consider honey good and healthy while high fructose corn syrup is bad. Well, HFCS is chemically composed of roughly 50 fructose and 50 glucose. Sure, honey has some trace minerals and a few other compounds in trace amounts, but teaspoon to teaspoon, HFCS and honey are the same product sugars. Story 36. Crackers. They are dried bread. Just like dried fruit is worse for your teeth than fresh fruit, crackers are way worse for your teeth than fresh bread. Story 37. Healthy food is subjective and varies from person to person. I am no doctor, but speaking from personal experience, any food that your body have trouble breaking down, digest, and absorb can't really be considered a healthy food for the individual. Few years ago, I was into salads, and it was supposed to be really good for you eating it with healthy fats and stuff. After a few months of struggle, turns out my gut just really don't like raw greens no matter what I tried. I was getting serious digestive issues and gut inflammation symptoms. Meanwhile, my friend eat it every day and she digest everything very well and love it. I recommend thinking about foods in terms of nutritional value instead of healthy value and just pick foods that enhances your health and well-being. Story 38. Weed. It can whip you into a psychotic state when you'd otherwise not have had one. Once you have your first psychotic break, you're predisposed to more. It can cause seizures when you'd otherwise not have had one, and it's the same with psychosis. Once you've had one, you're vulnerable to more. Sometimes they're difficult to control with anti-seizure medications. Rebound insomnia from weed is horrible. Rebound anxiety is also horrible. Don't shoot the messenger. Story 39. It's not necessarily healthy, but a lot of people use it as a substitute for unhealthier drinks, soda water, SodaStream, etc. The carbonation bubbles is acidic and will melt the enamel outer layer of your teeth away. A lot of people switch to soda water thinking it's a healthy alternative to soft drink, but it's not without its own damage, especially if you're drinking it often. Teeth go yellow, extremely sensitive, etc. Story 40. Juices. If they have sugar in them, I'm a dentist and patients swear up and down they're healthy and don't drink soda. But when they mention juice, it's case closed to me. Story 41. As a person working in dentistry, I wouldn't recommend popcorn. It often gets stuck in the interdental space and sometimes it is difficult to clean it, which leads to rotting and caries. Story 42. Deli meat. Some people think that because it's turkey or chicken meat it's healthy for them. They don't realize how much sugar is added. And actually, meat in general should be kind of limited to either 2 ounces of red meat a day, or 5 ounces turkey chicken meat a day. That's essentially one decent-sized chicken breast a day, or a chunk of red meat smaller than a deck of cards a day. Most people are eating meat in every single meal, which is why America's #1 killer is heart disease. Story 43. I'm not a doctor, and this isn't an actual answer to the question, but I found that the Yuka app helps me figure out what to avoid when grocery shopping. It rates foods based on additives, calories, protein, sodium, and other criteria. It's very useful and on 10 per year. Also, it gives recommendations for healthier options. Story 44. Speaking from personal experience. Smoothies. Could never figure out why my stomach was always upset until I stopped drinking a ton of liquefied fruit every morning. Our bodies are not made to process fruits that way, and inevitably you barely gain any of the real nutritional benefit of the fruit because it moves through your system too fast. Story 45. Whole grain everything. It's not the unwholeness of many grain products which makes them problematic, But the general composition of grains were only ever somewhat healthy to humans as long as they do physically demanding jobs and need the energy those grains provide almost exclusively. Story 46. Not exactly a specific food, but some people don't realize that if you eat more calories than you burn, even if it's 100 fruit, vegetables, and meats dairy, you'll gain weight. Unless you're lifting weights, your weight gain will largely be fat. It's also not good for you to lose weight too fast. Story 47. I remember there was an NYT article about this. Granola was a standout. They have a graph showing what nutritionists say is healthy versus what the general public perceives as healthy. Story 48. Look up how to get ultra-processed food out of your diets. This may be a challenge in the US, and it is more expensive, so I do acknowledge it may not be for everyone. Story 49. Dental student. Thinking sparkling water is better alternative to soda teeth-wise. The gas is carbon dioxide and in your mouth it can turn into carbonic acid. It's not as bad as sugary sodas. Also, that lemon-infused water thing, yeah, also citric acid. Basically drink water, and if drinking sugary thing, use straw and swirl mouth with water after. Story 50. Beware dark greens. They are high in things as like bacon. They say it healthy, but be wary. Sodium is a bad one. They put 400 to over 1,000 milligrams a serving. Your body also need potassium them, so 650 to 1500 potassium to process that much sodium. Check the labels of all the food you buy to see if they have that potassium. If a food say it has sugar, put it back. Only get those with cane sugar or best is no sugar. Any packaged processed meats you should avoid until the food industry changes their ratios of sodium and potassium. Story 51. Energy is energy. However, energy density matters and general nutrition matters. Think of everything in kJ or calories per 100 g or whatever, much easier. If you don't know what a food is, then Google it. For example, I used AI to assist, however it looks mostly right to me. Super high oils 3400 to 3900 kJ, butter 3000 3100 kJ, nuts 2500 2800 kJ, chocolate milk 2100 2400 kJ, potato crisps 2100 2200 kJ, moderate, cheddar cheese 1500 to 1800 kJ, oats 1500 1600 kJ, flour 1400 1500 kJ, pasta dry 1500 1600 kJ, mozzarella 1200-1350 kJ lower, salmon 850-1000 kJ, beef lean 800-1000 kJ very low, oranges 180-200 kJ, apples 200-230 kJ, carrots 140-180 kJ, lettuce 60-80 kJ. What you want to do is fill up first on the two lower categories as much as possible with the core meals. Then supplement with moderate and super high when feeling low energy. The problem is that we fill up on the top stuff and don't get enough of the lower energy density things. Due to water content, some of these items are lower than what you'd expect, like oranges. However, even if you add 500 kJ 100 g, you are still well within the lower categories. It is also true that your digestive system can tell high-low energy density apart. However, not completely. It's a mix of size and energy density, opening it up to being tricked into feeling full. I have bread cereal in the morning, then a lean sandwich wrap for lunch, fruit for snacks, and then protein and veggies for dinner, with dessert usually being wine, beer, or cream. Story 52. Doctors are the worst people to ask. Medicine doesn't emphasize nutrition. You would definitely want to check more with a dietitian or nutritionalist. Story 53. Coconut oil is terrible for you. Plenty of people seem to be convinced of its benefits, but they don't realize just how calorie-dense it is. Can it be a healthy substitute in certain situations? Sure. But if you're buying the gigantic tub from Costco and cooking everything in it, you're likely adding a couple thousand calories a week to your diet you could otherwise avoid. Story 54. I have garlic slices sometimes, but if you're having bread every single day, then that's an issue. It's probably making you fatter. Don't trust hot dogs either. They destroy DNA. Burgers are also pumped with chemicals. Chicken is pumped with water and chemicals, but hot dogs and burgers seem to be worse. I'm not a doctor, but I pay attention to things. Already cut chicken works better. Chopped up onion and garlic with mashed potato seems like good food. Stick to soft drinks too. Apple juice and orange juice. Those healthy bars and shops aren't healthy. BTW. Food companies used to be cigarette companies. It's about addiction and greed. Butcher makes meat worse and sells for cheaper too. Also keep in mind that doctors and therapists often can get things wrong. The clinic isn't your friend. They want money. People will often blindly agree with each other. Most cures are found in nature. Looking after yourself in the first place. Antibiotics can help, but if it's something like pain headaches, then try adjusting with it. Unless it's really bad to the point it's an intense migraine. Remember, for emergencies only, last resort, not first. Clinics doctors rarely remind people of this. Drugs often backfire too. How much thought do people actually give this? Story 55. Not a doctor, but here's a link to an article about what apparently healthy foods are not healthy. Story 56. Huge yes to moderation. It's all about the balance. It's okay to enjoy a cookie or piece of cake if you balance it out with activity and other good foods. It's not about punishing yourself. Story 57. I'm guessing you're in the US. When I was in the US for a work trip a few months ago, I ordered the healthiest looking option on the breakfast menu of the hotel, a strawberry yogurt with granola and fruit. Sounds very healthy. Got the bowl and A. It was incredibly big. B. The granola was laden with sugar and tastes very sweet, and C. The yogurt itself was incredibly sweet. You didn't taste yogurt. You tasted sugar with a chemical strawberry taste on top. Story 58. This is a huge point, honestly. Even calling individual food items healthy or unhealthy can be misleading at best. Diets are healthy or unhealthy, not individual items. Pretty much anything that isn't actively a known poison at the doses you're taking can be part of a healthy diet. It's not like unhealthy food generally does actively harmful stuff to you. It just provides excesses of stuff or a lack of stuff you need while leaving little room for getting that extra stuff from your other food without taking in too many calories. Don't think of food being harmful. Think of it like having a calorie budget you can spend where you need to get all your micro and macronutrient requirements in before you go over the budget. In addition, every nutrient can also go over the ideal range and become detrimental. Your goal is to balance things out as to not take in too much of any one thing while getting enough of everything else. Traditionally thought of as unhealthy foods usually just give you a ton of calories while not providing enough of the other stuff you need, and also possibly pushing a macronutrient budget so high that it's hard to get the rest of the stuff without continuing to push that same category into the bad area. But that isn't like inherently bad, it just makes things awkward. You absolutely can compensate for and balance out the rest of the diet to compensate and be perfectly healthy. It's just that individual items also tend to go along with trends in overall diet, so most people who eat, say, candy or deep-fried stuff eat a lot of it and without any consideration of the rest of the stuff they need, so they don't compensate by eating high micronutrient, low-calorie stuff to reach the ideal balance. I just hate how unhealthy a lot of people's relationship is with how they eat in a fundamental way. Oftentimes even healthy eaters will have heavily disordered ways of thinking about what they are eating. While not as harmful as a bad diet, it sure isn't good for their overall well-being in being so obsessive and regimented, or just being into other people based on how they eat. Add in that everyone's dietary requirements varies depending on an extraordinary number of factors, and often you have people pushing themselves into a box they just don't fit in, or judging others for not fitting into the box that fits them. I guess ultimately the number one thing is flexibility, nuance, and realizing that one of greatest features is the ability to survive on very different diet profiles good enough, even when not ideal that strict ideas about food almost never hold true in all circumstances. Story 59. Eat plain, whole milk yogurt. If you need to add something, add fresh fruit, then try the flavored yogurt after a month. The sugar will overwhelm you. Story 60. Yes, you need to be careful with yogurt. While some are fine, others have insane amounts of sugar in them. I recently bought a small yogurt at a cafeteria and I couldn't believe how sweet it was. Checked the nutrition label and saw that, by volume, there was more sugar in it than soda. Learned my lesson about not checking the label first. Story 61. A friend of mine has an aunt that ate a bunch of bananas every single day for months because they were easy access and free. She lived beside a plantation and collapsed one day due to potassium poisoning. She's doing much better these days. Story 62. The yogurt industry convinced women that those little sugared up yogurts are a healthy lunch addition. I saw or read a marketing thing about yogurts. Decades ago we struggled to swallow sour tasting yogurt. Suddenly sweet yogurt was the thing. Story 63. How exactly are flavored yogurts not a dessert? I mean, they're an everyday kind of dessert that I let my 4-year-old have quite regularly. Not a chocolate brownie cheesecake, but still. Story 64. Also, most yogurts in the shops don't contain live cultures. So if you buy yogurt, at least make sure you're getting live cultures. It's far better though to make it and kefir etc. at home. Story 65. Yes, a lot of healthier people I know buy the plain Greek yogurt and just put fruit and honey in it. One lady I worked with put a small amount of jam in hers so she could control how much sugar she put in it. Story 66. Used to know a gal who went on a diet fad of keto, months and she hadn't lost a pound. We talked and found out one day she had 6 chicken breasts before noon. Calories are calories. Can't just cram whatever you think is healthy. Story 67. If you're craving flavored yogurt with less sugar, you can do 1 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt and a tablespoon of sugar pudding mix. Mix the out of it. It will thicken up and be a very large portion of deliciousness for 130 to 160 calories, minimal sugar, and a good bit of protein. Story 68. They really should be considered a dessert. Hang on, are yogurts not a dessert? They are to me, and I think at least where I come from they are considered a dessert or maybe a snack. Story 69. When my niece was around 13 or 14 years old, she had this thing for carrots. She ate so many carrots that the palms of her hands turned orange. So yeah, too much of anything healthy has its negatives. Story 70. Yo, my husband would eat like 1 to 2 bananas a day for a few months. He had to go to his doctor for a work physical. His lab work came back saying his potassium was so high that his doctor told him to stop eating bananas for like 6 weeks and to redo his labs. It was still a little high but manageable. Crazy. Story 71. The second paragraph is so key. Good foods, bad foods leads to so much guilt and shame. Our kids respond well to the idea that we're going to feel better if we aim for the bulk of our diet to be nutrient-rich, but it would be incredibly boring to never have any of the fun stuff and make you way more likely to binge it when you suddenly find access. As to yogurt, I take a plain container and stir in just enough preserves to make it tasty, and it's like 20 of the sugar in the prepackaged stuff. Plus, when we do grab a prepackaged one like at a hotel breakfast, it makes it kinda like a treat while still filling us up in that particular moment. Story 72. Many years ago I used to eat French vanilla yogurt with some chocolate chips, leftover behavior from childhood. Then one day I accidentally got plain, and after my initial disgust, I actually started to enjoy it. Then I stopped putting chocolate chips in it, and now I eat plain Greek yogurt like a psycho. Story 73. Get the protein you need, eat different stuff, don't go above maintenance kcal. If you don't want to gain weight, it's practically impossible to overeat lean meat and vegetables, fruit. Story 74. If I remember correctly, they also didn't take into account that some people don't drink because they have health issues already, but they were included in the zero drinks group, so the zero drinks group looked less healthy, because they were already sick. Story 75. There are so many women of a certain age who fell for this, or at least use it to cover for their over-drinking. My mom is in stage 4 cirrhosis. To this day she believes it is due to an autoimmune issue and not how much she drank. Story 76. I feel this way about so many just eat how they eat over in X fads. Sure, they've got better quality standards and ingredients, but I think that maybe it's not their diet that helps them live longer, it's being able to see a doctor without going bankrupt. Story 77. There was also a study that showed people who drank 1 alcoholic beverage a day lived longer than those who drank 0. However, they included people who had cirrhosis from drinking so much alcohol and can no longer drink it as part of the 0 a day group. Story 78. Surely there's a sweet spot somewhere where you indulge in stuff that in isolation is bad, but abstaining totally from anything that brings you joy is also bad. For example, if you get a beer or two at the pub every fortnight with your old college buddies, and thus get a sense of community, is that really worse than being lonely and sad? Or for me as a pregnant lady, will me accidentally eating 55 grams of licorice on a random day instead of the max recommended 50 be worse for the baby than the stress of obsessing over the amount of licorice I eat continuously throughout the pregnancy? I don't have the answer, but I feel like these considerations should be factored in the recommendations somehow, if they aren't already. Story 79. That's true, but we also have to remember that the sun is a class 1 carcinogen too. Alcohol, like the sun, still has many benefits, like fostering relationships and easing social interactions, the lack of which are some of the biggest risks for Alzheimer's and early death. Beyond that, what these headlines often fail to mention is that low amounts of alcohol use are still relatively low risk. 2 drinks a week only shorten your lifespan by about 2 weeks. 7 a week is only 5 months.